Nike was built by two men with a handshake deal, a waffle iron, and borrowed money. One of them ended up with almost none of the company. Nike generates over $50 billion in revenue annually and is the world's most valuable sports brand. The Swoosh logo was designed by a design student for $35. Michael Jordan's Nike deal revolutionized sports marketing and saved a struggling company. But behind the inspirational advertising is a darker story of sweatshop labor, cultural appropriation, and one of the most ruthless competitive strategies in corporate history. The real Nike story is more complicated and more interesting than any of its advertisements. This is the history they never put in the commercials. Phil Knight was a middle-distance runner at the University of Oregon in the late 1950s, coached by Bill Bowerman. Bowerman was obsessive about improving athletic performance through better footwear. He would take apart his athletes' shoes and redesign them. Knight wrote a paper at Stanford Business School arguing that Japanese running shoes could undercut the German shoe dominance of Adidas and Puma. After graduating, Knight flew to Japan and met with executives at Onitsuka Tiger Shoes with no appointment and no authority. He claimed to represent a company called Blue Ribbon Sports, which did not yet exist. The Japanese executives showed him samples, and Knight ordered 50 pairs on the spot with money he did not have. He flew home and convinced his former coach Bowerman to go into business with him. Each invested $500. Blue Ribbon Sports was born on a handshake in 1964. Knight sold the shoes from the trunk of his car at track meets, and Bowerman began his experiments, famously pouring rubber into his wife's waffle iron to create a new sole. The waffle sole, designed from a breakfast appliance, became one of the most significant innovations in running shoe history. It provided superior grip and cushioning compared to anything else available. Bowerman's shoe designs were brilliant, but he had made no formal agreement with Knight about ownership. When Blue Ribbon Sports eventually became Nike in 1978, Bowerman owned a significant stake. But the relationship between Knight and Bowerman was always complicated by the question of who was building whose vision. The original Onitsuka Tiger contract was a simple handshake that held together a partnership that would eventually threaten the entire shoe industry. By the early 1970s, Knight was ready to create his own brand rather than distribute Onitsuka Tiger. He needed a name and a logo. Quickly, because his first shoe collection had a production deadline. A graphic design student at Portland State University named Carolyn Davidson was hired to create the logo. Knight was not initially enthusiastic about her designs. When she presented the swoosh, he said, "I don't love it, but I think it'll grow on me." Davidson was paid $35 for the design. In 1983, Nike gave her shares in the company and a diamond ring as a belated acknowledgement of her contribution. The shares, given retroactively, were worth a significant amount, but a fraction of what the logo generated. The name Nike came from a last-minute employee suggestion the night before the brand had to be registered. It referenced the Greek goddess of victory, appropriate for a sports brand. Knight's preferred name had been Dimension 6, which, by almost universal agreement, would have been a disaster. The combination of the swoosh and the Nike name created one of the most powerful brand identities ever assembled. Nike went public in 1980, raising over $80 million and making Knight enormously wealthy overnight. But the real transformation of Nike into a cultural force came in 1984 with one phone call to a young basketball player from North Carolina. Michael Jordan was drafted by the Chicago Bulls. Nike offered him a deal that would change sports marketing forever. Jordan initially preferred Adidas, but Adidas was not interested in giving him his own shoe line. The Air Jordan deal fundamentally changed the relationship between athletes and brands. Before Jordan, shoe companies paid athletes to wear their products. It was an endorsement. After Jordan, athletes became brands themselves, with equity stakes and royalty arrangements. Jordan's Nike contract gave him royalties on every Air Jordan sold, creating a revenue stream that continues today, long after his playing career ended. Air Jordan has become the most successful athletic shoe line in history, generating over $5 billion in annual revenue as of 2023. Nike used the Jordan deal as a template for signing athletes before they became superstars. Tiger Woods signed with Nike in 1996 for $40 million when he turned professional. LeBron James signed a lifetime contract with Nike reportedly worth over $1 billion. Serena Williams, Roger Federer, Cristiano Ronaldo. Nike systematically signed the most important athletes in each major sport. The strategy was not just about selling shoes. It was about owning the cultural narrative of sport. Just do it. One of the most famous advertising slogans ever created was developed in 1988. Advertising agency Weeden and Kennedy presented the line to Nike. It was almost rejected. The slogan was written in response to a Nike brief asking for something that captured spirit of determination. Within months, Just Do It had become more than an advertising slogan. It was a cultural statement. The 1988 campaign transformed Nike from a sports equipment company into a lifestyle brand. While Nike was building its brand through inspirational marketing, an investigation in 1991 revealed conditions in its Asian manufacturing plants that horrified the world. A report by activist Jeff Ballinger documented workers in Indonesia being paid 14 cents per hour, while Nike shoes sold for over $100 in America. The contrast between Nike's aspirational advertising and the reality of its supply chain created a global controversy. Protests emerged at Nike stores worldwide. University campuses banned Nike contracts. The brand became a symbol of corporate exploitation. Nike's initial response was dismissive. The company argued the factories were independently owned contractors, not Nike's responsibility. This response made the controversy worse. Critics noted that Nike had complete control over specifications and pricing, but claimed no responsibility for conditions. In 1997, activist group Global Exchange targeted Nike's sponsorship of the 1998 World Cup. Nike was spending billions on the tournament, while workers in its Vietnamese factories were earning less than the local minimum wage. In 1998, Phil Knight made a remarkable public admission. He acknowledged that Nike's factory conditions were a problem and announced a series of reforms. Knight raised the minimum age for shoe factory workers, adopted U.S. clean air standards for overseas factories, and allowed independent monitoring. Critics argued the reforms were insufficient. Advocates argued they were the most significant labor commitments ever made by a major brand. The debate continued through the 2000s as successive investigations revealed ongoing problems in Nike's supply chain. Nike's response was to become one of the most transparent companies in the world about supply chain conditions, publishing factory lists that no competitor had done. This transparency strategy was controversial. Critics used the data Nike published to mount further campaigns. The labor controversy fundamentally changed Nike and ultimately changed the entire sportswear industry's approach to supply chain accountability. Nike did not just sell shoes, it created an entirely new economy around them. The sneaker resale market is now worth over $10 billion globally, larger than many national industries. Limited edition Nike releases, particularly Air Jordans, are treated as investment assets rather than footwear. A pair of 1985 Air Jordan 1s in original condition sold at auction for over $500,000. Nike deliberately manufactures scarcity by producing limited quantities of desirable releases, creating cues, violence, and a secondary market that keeps the brand desirable. The sneaker culture Nike created has been documented in films, studied by economists, and debated by urban sociologists. Nike has also been criticized for cultural appropriation, taking from black culture while not proportionally employing black executives. The air bubble technology that became Nike Air was invented by an engineer named Frank Rudy, who sold the concept to Nike in 1977. Nike's Flyknit technology, introduced in 2012, was so efficient it reduced material waste by 80% compared to traditional construction. Nike has also been at the center of debates about athlete political expression. When quarterback Colin Kaepernick was effectively blacklisted from the NFL for kneeling during the national anthem, Nike signed him in 2018. The move was controversial. Nike stock dropped initially, then recovered and reached record highs. The Kaepernick campaign demonstrated that Nike had moved beyond selling shoes to positioning itself as a participant in cultural and political debates. Nike's approach to gender equality in sport has been both celebrated and criticized. The company has championed female athletes while simultaneously being sued by female employees for gender discrimination in its corporate culture. Nike today faces challenges that would have been unimaginable when Knight was selling shoes from his car trunk. Climate change commitments have forced the company to examine every aspect of its supply chain. Nike has pledged to achieve zero carbon emissions by 2050, an enormous commitment for a company that manufactures hundreds of millions of products annually. The move to direct-to-consumer sales has been one of Nike's most significant strategic shifts. By selling directly through its app and website, Nike captures both the margin that would go to retailers and the data about what customers buy. Nike's SNKRS app for limited releases has created a digital version of the queue, but has also been criticized for bot activity and unfair access. The company has invested heavily in digital fitness. The Nike Training Club and Nike Run Club apps have tens of millions of users. These apps create a relationship with customers beyond transactions, turning Nike into a fitness partner rather than just a seller. Nike faces genuine competition for the first time in decades from On Running, Hoka, and New Balance. These brands have taken significant market share in running, the category Nike invented as its core business. Nike's response has been to double down on innovation. The Vaporfly shoe, which helped marathon runners break the 2-hour barrier, represents the brand's commitment to performance at the extreme edge. Eliud Kipchoge's sub-2-hour marathon in 2019 was run in Nike Vaporfly shoes and generated controversy about whether the technology was performance-enhancing. The question of where shoe technology ends and doping begins has become one of athletics' most divisive debates. Nike's future will be defined by how it navigates sustainability, digital transformation, and competition from more agile brands. But $50 billion in annual revenue suggests the brand built on a waffle iron and a $35 logo is not going anywhere. Bill Bowerman poured rubber into a waffle iron. Phil Knight flew to Japan with no appointment and no money. From those two acts of improvisation came the most powerful sports brand in history. The Swoosh was designed for $35. Just Do It was almost rejected. Michael Jordan preferred Adidas. None of that stopped Nike from becoming what it is, which says something about the nature of brand building. The real lesson of Nike is that extraordinary outcomes can come from ordinary beginnings, if someone is obsessive enough to pursue them. Subscribe to SG Nova Facts for more brand histories that show the real story behind the names you trust.